But yeah, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to our guest speaker, AJ, who, is clearly joining us from Canada. So, welcome to our first publicly streamed Farmers Yarn via the Grain Automate Farmers Yarn Facebook page. So, last year, SPA and 3 Year Consulting held 8 of these Farmers Yarn meetups with a select group of farmers, some of who are joining us on the chat at the moment. This year, we're opening things up and hosting things live on Farmers Yarn on the first Thursday of each month. Each session will bring together a group of farmers, ag tech companies, and industry experts to chat about everything from precision ag and automation to cybersecurity and agri-science. The aim of these conversations is to be farmer driven. So if there's a topic you'd like to hear from, please let us know and we'll do our best to line them up for the future. Most importantly, if you have any questions for our speaker today, please jump in and ask. I'm sure AJ will be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce AJ from Verge. Let you take it away, AJ.
Perfect. I ask if you could enable sharing for me because I'd like to share my screen,
Yeah.
and then we can start. I'll drop a link in the chat just to our website if you want to check out or you haven't yet. But it's pretty simple. It's vergeag.com. And basically, we started fairly simply as a AB line optimization company. So as I kind of mentioned when I first joined the meeting, I don't know if everybody was on, but I come from the CNH world in autonomy. And I joined Verge for the reason of basically getting the most out of AutoSteer. What we've kind of found in our sentiment is that if you have AutoSteer on your tractor, how much are you really getting out of it, right? So, all the major OEMs kind of want to charge you for unlocks and different levels, and they make you have different upgrade packages, and they kind of sell you all these other things with the hope that down the road, you're going to be ready for autonomy. And our whole shtick is kind of like, well, you can pretty much get autonomy today if you have auto steer. So use what you have. So it kind of speaks to something that was already talked about on this chat is how do you get the most out of what you have already? And that kind of starts your precision ag journey. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of our use case here. Apologize. I am slightly new to Teams. I'm used to Zoom, so we'll get.
That's all right.
You should see a window with a thing that says sign into VergeAg.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, yeah. So what I want to walk you through is a couple of our things, our tools that we can use to kind of get the most out of what you have already. And basically, anybody can log into this. We do authentication with the Operations Center, PTX Trimble, and CNH, as well as you can just create an account if you'd like as well. But what you'll kind of see is we're going to show you here, Australia. We're going to show you what we do in our system. So again, everything kind of starts with where you are in your precision ag journey. And that, in my experience, starts from almost nothing to, as far down the road as you can go. And some of you might be experimenting with a SwarmBot or some form of autonomy or camera systems, just trying to get the most out of the equipment that you have, right? So I'm assuming, and we have different ways of getting boundaries into our system. So if that's something you'd like me to go through, please just raise your hand. We have the version here, which is taken off of our satellite boundaries. So they're just satellite maps that we get through third-party source from, and they give us these kind of maps, okay? You can map these on your tractor. You can get these through, again, those OEM connections. You can create them from log data. There's multiple ways of doing this. This is just one way of getting it into your system. So hopefully this looks fairly familiar to people in Australia. And I'll show you kind of what and why you'd want to pre-plan a field, okay? So I'm going to take this fairly simple field here, field number 2. I have set up a little bit of an equipment, but it's very easy. Just a 12-meter seeder, a 12-meter harvester, a 18-meter seeder, as well as a 36-meter sprayer and a 48-meter spreader. Okay, so kind of all those operations that you'd have typically on a farm in Australia. So looking at seeding, we can go for 12 meters, single track, and we plan headland passes. So that's a headland pass all the way around the outside. Okay. Most people with a 12-meter seeder will do 2. You can do 3 depending on how long your train is and what kind of tech that you have. But really what we're doing here is we're planning your guidance lines. Okay, and that's kind of the progression of the way precision ag works. And so you have a boundary, you get an AB line, And then you kind of can use our tool to figure out what does that actually mean. Okay. Most people will want to align to an edge, will pick some feature in the field if you have a field entrance, you know, something that you'll want to align to. And there's a couple reasons for that. So if we were to align, we're doing three things here. So we're giving you the longest, straightest edge. We're also giving you the option for the least number of tracks, as well as the shortest distance traveled. So whatever outcome you really want to get to, you can actually do it here. Okay. And what's really interesting is as we start to look at it, what we'll do is we'll enable the coverage. We'll turn the route off for a second. But this really is where the first bit of analysis starts for somebody getting into precision ag. Okay. It's, do I have auto steer? Yes. Do I travel in straight lines? Most people will say yes. Do you have boundaries? Yes. And that kind of gets a little bit iffy. But then you kind of get into, have you truly thought out the traffic in your field? Okay. And most of that starts with overlap. And on this field, what we're doing is we're taking this long edge on the right. You can see we've kind of identified 4 or 5 of them just because they're long and straight. And we're going to align to it. So we give you a line of best fit according to these edges. So if you can see, the direction of this heading has actually changed. And what we do is we translate this line so that there's no overlap along that long edge, propagate those up. And that way, most of the overlap is kind of on this top edge here. Okay. And the way you see that through the stats is running the path plans for different headings. And you can use this field summary to actually compare the two. Okay. So as you can see, I can pick a new edge. It takes a little bit to actually get that stat calculation simply because we're making some assumptions and saying that this is the amount of working time you're going to have. This is the amount of non-working time you're going to have given the complexity of your field. Again, based off this heading and this AB line. Okay. So my first AB line would be this one here based off that longest edge. So looking at it, what we found kind of over time is that you always want to cover your field. So the working time doesn't really change all that much when we look down here. Okay, so the distance and the total time working, 141 kilometers doesn't change much in between all these headings. So 141.34, you know, that's just a simple bit of a turn. We can look up at this one, 141.78. Okay, so we always want to cover the field. That was our first learning. What really matters for people in gaining efficiency is what we consider the non-working time. Okay, so it's this non-working, and in our representation, it's all these black traversals. So this is the time in between how you plan out your field. Okay, and this is what you want to maximize. So this is more consistent turns, more consistent operators. Hopefully you can actually send this to somebody that you're trying to train, or maybe doesn't have quite the experience as an operator in your fields, and you can actually tell them, I want you to farm this way. We're going to turn the coverage off for a second because that can get confusing. But what we're kind of enabling and where we're moving to and what we want to show you today is, again, how do you get the most out of your equipment? So what we ended up doing is, again, if you can see the non-working time, we actually allow farmers to export that, and it will take this path. So we can export this as one big line string from start to finish that will go into your monitor, and it'll actually follow this all the way around in that order. So what you see is what you get here. Okay, so once you've finalized what you want your plan to look like, okay, you can then export it to your machine. It's there for your operators. Easily communicate that and say, here's where it's going. That is, in a nutshell, pre-planning one operation for a farmer. Okay, is there any questions out of that? I know I did go through it a little bit faster. But the reason I wanted to do that is because I'd like to get into some of the real meat of what we do, and it's where you start to plan those subsequent operations. Any questions about what I just did?
I've got a quick one from me. So you can just import directly from, whatever software you're currently using with boundary maps into Verge. Is that correct?
Yes. So we do the 3 big OEM authentication. So Deere, Operation Center, PTX Farm Engage, and CNH Field Ops. If you don't, the easiest thing to do is either an ISO XML file. or shapefile. And you can also do a KML as well. So that kind of covers the bases for every kind of software out there anyway.
Cool.
And that will get your boundaries in here, okay? So the interesting part with what we've been doing with GRDC in Australia over the last couple of years is we've been really getting into problem space that hits home for Australian farmers, and that would be control traffic farming. And this is where you can actually start to leverage really what you do with pre-planning, and why you want to pre-plan is so you can plan the traffic in your field and start to account for the differences in subsequent operations over time. Okay, so I'd happily show you a route where we have some different options, but it's easier to see on a field that doesn't have any obstacles in the middle. So if we have some time at the end, I'll plan a really complex one so you can see kind of how we route around everything, and we take a lot of pride in that. But sorry, as far as we're going here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our single plans, and this is the plan that we just made. We have a list of all the other plans for all the other fields that we've made, and we do allow you to do bulk planning as well. So if you wanted to make one seeding plan for all of your fields, you could do that really fast and then kind of get into this process. But what we're going to do is we've planned seeding. I know I'm working backwards. You usually start with harvest, but I'm going to go seeding into harvest. So we do this plan we give it a name. We're going to say CTF 2026, and we're going to choose our next operation as harvest. So what we've done is we've taken that reference plan, and you can see that boundary here, and we're going to align those guidance lines from one operation to the other. So you'd have the same guidance line that's in your seeder, in your tractor, or in your harvester. Now you can make some adjustments if you'd like. You can do 2 headland passes. Remember, on the seeding plan we did 2. You could do 1 for a sprayer, and we'll show you how that compounds. Now, Australian farmers are very innovative. You guys do a lot of stuff to your equipment. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, we can show you a couple other things, but everything's on that 3-meter traffic, and that seems to work very well. So you guys actually modify equipment or buy specialized equipment to address this problem. So that's why we align these 2 reference lines like this. So if you really wanted to, because you're doing harvesting at an angle for soybeans or some other reason, you can actually offset these to go inter-row year to year. You can then do different adjustments like rotation. So I could rotate these 5 degrees to the left, or I could do 5 degrees to the right, depending on how you wanted to do that. Or we can do what we call reduced wheel traffic area. So reduced wheel traffic area is if you're not on the same track spacing and tire sizes, then we'll do our best to manage that and actually reduce or align those as best as possible from plan to plan. Okay. So, all right, when you do this one, come on. Work for me. Two headland passes, and we should be able to save. That's not working for me right now. Gotta love when that happens.
Only when you're demoing.
only when we're demoing, yes.
So while you're getting it to load and get the demo back up, is there a download sort of app version of Verge, or is it still just directly on Chrome or whatever your Explorer is?
We're all on the web app. You can actually access us on mobile as well. Some of the seasonal planning, like CTF planning, can't be done on mobile, but you're able to create plans for all your fields very easily on mobile as well. All right. We don't have a quick one, so we'll quickly recreate that 12-meter seeder. And I'll show you an easy way you can kind of get through this flow as well instead of going to the plans page. Again, what we're doing in the background here is planning your initial guidance lines. I'm going to calculate that route for you. We're going to then save it, and jump into that seasonal planning page. And I'm going to change the heading to this line here because I like it a little bit better. More matches what the underlying traffic is. So once you're set, you can then hit next, and then you can say plan from, okay? And that again is, we do CTF 2026, and we're going to choose harvest with 12-meter front. We're going to do the 2 headlands on both, and then we'll save it. And now I know it's working because I have my purple bar across the top. It's going to save this really fast, and it will give me the 2 plans grouped together. Okay, and this is where we start to unlock some of that really, really good, powerful equation. So what we can see here is that we have 2 plans with wheel traffic area of 13.43%. Okay, and that is the wheel traffic across both. That is the unique wheel traffic area. Cumulative is just that kind of doubled if you were to lay it over, representing 2 operations in the field. And then total overlap area between the 2 is 5.56 hectares. Okay. Now we can analyze these, which is really interesting. So what you'll see here is that we have 2 different operations. And if I turn one off and turn one back on, they align perfectly. And that's what we did with that plan from. Put them right over top of one another. Now, again, if we go back to this seasonal group, so we have the CTF 2026, again, we have that group. We can actually then start to create more, okay? So now we can add in a sprayer very fast. We'll do the 36-meter sprayer, 1 headlamp pass all the way around. We're gonna, again, keep those same traffic on this group. So we have 2 different here. We'll go view this group again. So now we have 3. And what we can show you is that we now have 3 all in here. But what's interesting is you can see that if we look at the sprayer, because the seeder and the harvester have the same traffic, they will be represented as the same yellow guidance line. And now we have the sprayer. So every 3rd line, our sprayer actually lines up. We have 1 headland pass representing the traffic there. We can start to analyze. Again, the last thing I want to show you with this tool is where we get into some really, really interesting calculations. So one big thing we found in the Australian market now is a lot of people are starting to add in what we'd call a we have 2 actually. So it's a 18-meter front for a harvester or an 18-meter seeder. And what does that actually do to your traffic? Okay. So I'm going to use the 18-meter seeder here just to represent that, because again, it doesn't really matter if we go harvest or seeding, but we can show you what that actually does to our wheel traffic area, as well as the guidance and the compaction for this plan. Okay, so we've added in 1 more. Now, if you remember, everything lines up before. And if we turn off our 18-meter seeder, which is the blue one, everything will line up, okay? So our traffic in CTF is there, and we've gone 1 step further and just lined everything up, right? So now if we add in that 18-meter seeder, what does that actually mean? Well, you're gonna have more traffic area in the headlands all the way around, okay? We do sweep the corners, but we can adjust that later. And then I believe it's every 4th line, 5th line you're on program. 4th. Every 4th line you're on program, but every 3rd one you have 1 that's out. Okay. And the real question is that worth it for the productivity you're going to gain from an 18-meter seeder harvester? And how does that affect subsequent operations? So one thing that we've done, helped people kind of realize is, what does that mean? The interesting thing is when you think of an 18-meter front, the grain cart operator has to know more about where they're going to be, because they can now pick 1 or 2 lines adjacent to this one. They're usually With a 12 meter, they're usually on just the track that's adjacent to the harvester. And this one, they got to be a little bit more aware. There's a little bit more coordination around getting to your grain cart, to your harvester, especially when you're off program, right? So kind of an interesting thing that we found, especially in Australia. I really do hope that I talked through that in a way that you understand because again, it's a little shorter of a presentation tonight, but you guys truly understand that problem a little better than us North Americans do. Compaction is not really a thing here. We have this wonderful thing called winter where the ground freezes and it eliminates about 40 to 50% of the compaction. So we tend to not care about it as much. But as far as the CTF planning and how that kind of lines up, is there anything that you have questions about on that so far?
Hi, AJ. Yeah, I had a question just based around probably even a layer deeper than what you're talking about. So currently we're in the process of moving towards the 18 meter, like 60-foot header fronts. Last year we ran both 40 and 60s, which was a nightmare logistically, but something that often comes up or that has come up with that is how long the runs are starts to become a problem with the 60-foot fronts, just because, of course, how much they pull in. Is there another layer to that where you can sort of make a calculation around how far down those runs that 60-foot front would get comparative to the 40?
Yes. Yes. So one thing that we do allow is what we call a refill strategy. And this is the idea is that something has to, sorry, let me double check that I have this equipment set up correctly. So on I have the harvest. Do you roughly know what your capacities would be? I could look it up really fast, and I apologize I didn't set this up, but what we can do is actually set these up. I'll set it up as just kind of random numbers for now. So let's put your capacity at 10,000 liters and your flow rate at about 150. So we will do then a harvest at 15. The capacities, I mean, let's keep the capacity the same, and then we'll say your flow rate's a little bit higher. So actually, let's keep the flow rate the same. Keeping the capacity and the flow rate the same, because you have a wider width, you should get more productivity. It should account for that, is kind of where I'm going with this one.
Yep.
So we will create two plans that way, and then I can show you the difference. Okay.
Sure.
So if we do the 18, let's do the 12, two headland passes. We have two different calculations right now. And we started out with a basic one. And basically what it is we said, given you have a capacity and a flow rate, and we do calculations on the route, you're going to end somewhere, right? And generally you don't want that to be in the middle of a line. However, that could be something that would help you in this instance. So we do have two algorithms, and we just enable this layer called refill points. So you'll see that it's pushed to a headland. Now, if you're looking at this and you see that we actually travel in a direction, so again, we model this direction kind of coming from here. So once you get to this line, depending on what direction you're traveling, we're going to refill or empty before you enter that line, okay? But again, what I was kind of looking at is we could actually do the exact location, and this would help you predict which line you're actually going to run out on. Now, granted, this is a very linear calculation. We don't have like a variable rate yield map or anything like that. So depending on your yields, we could actually start to predict where you're going to have to fill or be at capacity. Okay, so you'll see that this is capacity 0. Now, it's a little bit tricky to do this, but what you can do is we have track indices, okay? And it shows you the line numbers. So you'll say, I'm going to be, let's call it 2/3 of the way down line 34. Now, what we'd have to do is we would then have to run this same analysis on the 18 meter, okay? So we'd actually go back, we would switch this, run the exact same thing, run a new path plan, make sure it's on the same heading, do the calculation. And if you remember correctly, we're halfway down line 34. I believe it was 112 tracks with the, sorry, yeah, it's 102 maybe tracks, but we'll change this as well. Go to the exact, update that, and we're down line 34. Again, we kept the capacities the same, but you're going to run probably 2/3 of the way down line 23. What that means for timings, we haven't gone that far yet, but it's something where we're moving to and kind of getting into grain cart. So if you keep an eye on us over the next kind of year, that's going to be grain cart kind of analysis is going to be where we're moving into. But yeah, I hope this kind of showed you a little bit. Is there anything else that I could help answer?
No, I think, yeah, what you're showing is that there is the capacity to do that through Verge, which is pretty cool. Because yeah, that's definitely the most, in terms of logistics in paddock with multiple headers, is working out where is the most efficient spot to empty and not run full, which this year happened way too often because we were new to it. So yep, that's great to see.
So that's where I would say is that, again, we would push it to the outer headland, so then you don't ever get into that run full situation. Now, what we are assuming here is that at this point, your primary vehicle is going to stop and something's going to fill it, okay? One other thing that we're getting into, and this is kind of our other version, and I apologize, it's a little bit it's a little bit new, we'll put it that way. It's still pre-beta. But this is capacity-based routing. So this is getting more into where you're going to have multiple vehicles in the field. So right now, what we calculate is field entrance. So that's this green point. And what you'll see is that every time it hits one of these refill spots, the idea is that the vehicle would have to come back to this point to refill or unload. Okay. So once we get there, we will see, we'll hit this refill point and actually went back to the depot and then continued on. And that's a little bit closer to what farmers do. Now, again, the progression is, instead of that vehicle having to return to that depot, you're going to add in another vehicle that'll return from the field entrance to unload your harvester wherever it is, and kind of continue from there. So that is a very well-known mathematics problem that we're going to getting into. But again, this version is pre-beta, so.
I've got a quick question. So you said that calculation that's done is linear, so it's just assuming that you're, I assume, putting the same amount out constantly. Can you put a variable rate map in to put over the top, and then it's calculating it based on that, or not yet?
Not yet. We don't have the mechanism to actually take in a variable rate. What we've found is that it does really well if you use your average yield from the year before. And it comes close enough, especially when you're using the especially when you're using this nearest outer headland version, because you're going off of not running out or running exactly full, you're going to save quite a bit of that, and you're going to have that 5% buffer before you head down the track. So it's kind of, again, it's what we've kind of heard from everybody is the average yield from the year before works really well, depending on the crop, obviously. But this works pretty well as far as predicting. Now, one thing more that you can do from a logistics standpoint is actually send this to a phone, which is really neat. So you can use the share feature. Anybody can access this link. It's a private link. We kind of de-anonymize any of the user information. So it's kind of if you have the link, you can view it. If you can't, Oh, come on. Why? Why always? Why always when you're demoing? We'll share this here. It's not giving me, it's not going to give me that one. Come on. All right, let's try a refresh. How's that sound? Maybe I really made it mad.
Nothing beats a demo.
Always. I mean, it never fails. Apparently this isn't working for me right now. Oh, there we go. Okay. Showed up eventually. Okay. So this is what you can see. You can set, this is obviously on the web, but I'm going to show you what it looks like on a mobile phone. And this is what a user would get on a mobile phone. So you can actually kind of thumb through this and you can get the track numbers. And we're going to add the refill points here as well. So then if a user is using it, they can use that trace, the play button as well, and kind of get into that situation where if they really needed to, they could say, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to refill at line, 24, right? And if my refill point is again at this headland, it's like, okay, yeah, after this is where I am. We also find that this tool helps a lot where, harvest is a great example. Things always tend to go wrong in harvest, and you can go from 5 harvesters down to 1 harvester in a matter of like 3 seconds, and then all of a sudden they're all back up going. So it's, if you have a breakdown or if you don't know where to pick up, if everybody's kind of running the same plan, it makes it very easy to say, you know what, how about I take lines, 17 through 29 and you go to 31. And then we can kind of manage that there. It's really a good tool when things go wrong, right? And pick up where you left off is kind of what we're going for there as well. Any other questions?
AJ,
How
I'm
does
sorry,
it-
sorry if you.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You go, Laura.
Or Tom. I was just going to quickly ask. Sorry if I missed it, but is there any way of farmers manually, kind of changing path plans if there's something that pops up? Like I'm thinking, like if there's wet spots or slopes that you shouldn't be traversing in that direction, or certain internal boundaries like trees or dams or something.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. So if you have an obstacle, we do allow you to do this in land, and you can actually mark it as passable or unpassable. So we'll go here. I'm going to click this field 25. I'll come back to edit. And then if I click shape number 2, so there's a list of shapes, get into number 2, I can actually mark it as passable. So I would have a plan that I'd want to use passable, where it would basically say, I don't care what this is, I'm going to plow through it, usually for a wet area. So then you'd actually have 2 plans. So you'd say I have one where it uses the passable obstacles and goes through them, or I have one that it doesn't. Okay, and we use this quite a bit in North America, especially for waterways. It's very easy. So when you are planning, the easiest thing to do is hit new plan. You hit this advanced options, and then you just use passable. Now, slopes is a very interesting one. I'll actually run this field with the slope analysis tool. So what we do is we do have NASA DEM, which is the digital elevation model. It's good to about 5 meters, and we super sample it to about 3 meters in areas and 1 meter in certain areas, depending on the resolution of the image. Now, what this does is it actually allows you to show on the tracks how much area is the same percentage slope. So what you'll see is it's a little green. There should be a little bit yellow, mostly orange. But it does enable a couple other outcomes that you can plan for, okay? So what we do on defaulting when you use slope is actually to default to the heading that gives you the least amount of soil loss. Okay, so there's a pretty well-known equation called the Russell 2 equation. Based on the direction of travel, it's one of the biggest things that affect soil loss and erosion in a field as you're tilling. So that's tilling and or planting, anything that's ground engaging. So along these slopes, what you can see at the very bottom is your slope breakdown. So given this soil loss, or if you want to say fuel usage, now one caveat, I don't have a fuel usage, we use some defaults, so please bear with me. If you were to put in your own fuel usage numbers, burn rate in your equipment, these numbers would be a little bit different. But you can do least fuel used, and it'll change your heading based on that. So if you look at it, the longest edge is north-south. But if soil erosion is something you're worried about, given the slope of this field, it's going to give you about a 90-degree heading, which is basically not the way that this one's farmed, I don't think. So if you're conscious about that and you want to keep the water where it is, you might want to actually take this into account anyway, right? If this is something that you're worried about. Now,
Yeah.
what you can see is the slope range for these tracks will actually change. So you've got less than 1% on the red areas, which is these, which are greater than 8% slope. But if you do travel along the longest edge, you'll actually see that there's more that way. So you're gaining efficiency, right? By having less tracks, less overlap, and using longer runs, but you might be wearing your equipment just a little bit more. Might not quite be the best for soil erosion. And this is kind of the analysis we like to enable for people across the world. So I hope that answered your question.
No, that's really good. Thank you, AJ. Because we have certain areas where you'll compromise efficiency for drainage just because of slope of the land, and to remove that risk, particularly with CTF where we have these run lines that are trafficked quite a lot. You don't want to be blowing them out if they're perfectly running down the hill.
You're trying not to create rivers of water, right? That's the whole thing. The last thing that I will say is what you can see is fuel and safe. So if you are following any of the ag related legislation in Europe at all, they have actually started to say that you are not allowed, for insurance reasons and safety reasons, to traverse a track that has a cross angle slope of less than some degrees. I believe it's 35 degrees. I'd have to get to see the legislation, but they've actually put that risk in. So if you were to do that in certain fields with this, it would actually say this is considered a safe direction of travel. And that varies by country, obviously. So you can actually put in this is how much I want my cross track angle. So everybody in my area has this idea of a field that you can only traverse down because the slope is so steep. You can't really you can't farm it crosswise or cross track. That would greatly point that out. And same with this as well. If you had a giant red area here, it's an area where you may want to farm differently. You might want to cut that area out using the land tools, farm it in a different direction, which is another thing, another option that can happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Was there another question?
Yeah. Hi, AJ. I dabbled in Verge a few years ago, and then we also had a meeting at the back end of, I think it was December, where we looked at the tools. And I remember at the time we were unsure whether the John Deere or Case screens would be able to actually handle the data set of running full paddock run lines.
Yes.
I was just wondering, has it been tried and tested to run full paddocks on full farms, or is it just put paddock by paddock on the screen at planning?
Yep. So we are at full farms in like Mali area. We've got about 5 people doing full farm on G5 deer. So we know G5 works fully. Gen 4 has a limit of 4,000 points per map, per field. So if your paddocks are very big or there's a lot of turns, I say that loosely because it's kind of a dynamic number. We can run into issues, but we haven't quite hit that limit yet. So I would love to try that again if we can. Anything kind of Gen 3 though, we definitely have a limit of 3,000 points per field. So they have to be loaded in field by field.
Yeah, no, I thought that was the case, but yeah, the Gen 5s have got a fair bit more power compared to the old 2630s.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Pro 700 is just I'll tell you right now, we have a little bit of love-hate with the Pro 700, and that sentiment is shared worldwide. From what I've kind of had, I've got people using them successfully, and I've got a lot of people them not using them successfully, and I cannot tell you why. So that one's a little bit different. But Pro 1200 does take our route if you are doing upgrades that way. They take it very well. The only difference is we have a small issue pushing directly from field ops. The way their CN1 file actually is brought into field ops on its own, it breaks the lines for our steerable headlines from one continuous headline pass into multiple headline passes. So we have a current bug ticket with Case that they are working on.
Yeah, right. Perfect.
Okay. So since we're kind of wrapping up at the end, I would give everybody this link. What this is a case study that we've done with GRDC, obviously with our partners at Farm & Co and ACFA. And it was on a farmer in WA. We planned their initial operation they purchased new land. So we took the old guidance lines that they had and planned it all in Verge, and used existing traffic. And then we planned all the new fields that were purchased using an optimized guidance line for least amount of overlap. Kind of like that longest, straightest edge that you guys kind of seen through there on the second half of the field. And I definitely encourage you guys to read this if you want some more information. But they are using our full route end to end, except for on their Fendt tractors. They need to test that a little bit more. Again, we ran into that. They have a limitation of 3,000 points. Not much we can do about that, but they have a firmware update coming out was supposed to be out in April, which ups that to 5,000, which we should be well under. Yeah. So again, I'd give everybody this link, and I'd highly encourage you to read it. I will pop that in the chat here in just a second.
Fabulous. Does anyone else have any final questions for AJ? If not, I got one final one. The data privacy side, so farmers are uploading data and paddock maps and locations onto Verge. I assume there's a data security side of Verge. How does that work?
Yes. So all of our stuff, we do follow EU practices, which we've found to be some of the best in the world. So obviously anything that is shared outside of Verge is anonymized, as well as if you request it, you can have your data purged from our system. And then we also we invest heavily in cybersecurity. So all your data is kind of locked down. Obviously, we do use the established OAuth protocols through the OEMs as well. And OAuth 2 is a pretty well-known protocol from that side. So whether you're creating your own account through us or logging in through the data that is in your Ops Center or Field Ops, it's all respecting the same privacy levels that they do. So for example, if you're going to use Ops Center to log in, you actually can give us partial permission. If you don't want us to share financials, you can only give us boundary information. We don't have to see equipment side. that is flow through from the OEM integrations. And then again, it's only the information that is entered. If you were to create an account directly with us, it's only the information that is entered, and that can be purged at any time. So.
Well, thank you again, for AJ, for making it today, and thanks for being part of the first Farmers Yarn we're putting public. So once again, if anyone would like to suggest a speaker for us for next month, or if you have any questions for AJ, please reach out. Not sure if you want to put your contact details into the chat, AJ, and happy to post that on the Facebook page as well. A couple events to keep in mind from SPA over the coming month. We have 2 Grain Automate workshops running in Emerald on the 11th with Milne Bros, and another on the 24th with St George Machinery, both in Queensland. SPA also has its annual Precision Ag Expo in Toowoomba on the 18th and 19th of March. So if you'd like to suggest more information about that event, please reach out to me. And yeah, happy to get back to you. So other than that, I think next Farmers Yarn, we should be featuring David Finley from Centertime. So he's a project partner as part of Grain Automate, who is working on a variable rate seeder based on real-time soil moisture data, and potentially another speaker that we're just locking down. So I hope to see you all next month. Thanks again for joining, and yeah, speak soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, AJ. Thanks heaps.